Welcome back, everybody, to another shocking courtroom episode of Lockdown 23 in 1. That's right, shocking it is. Today we're going to witness a cold-blooded murdering wife get sentenced for her crimes. You ain't gonna believe how this one went down, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get right into it. If you're new to the channel and enjoy all things lockup and crime related, then this is absolutely where you need to be. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell before you leave, and check out my playlist with many more videos for you to start watching today. Alright, per usual, before we get into the courtroom of witnesses sentencing, let me break down exactly why she's in here to begin with. Corey Richens is a 36-year-old Utah mother and children's book author. Wow, I didn't know that. That just goes to show you even a children's book author can be a monster. But she was convicted for the March 2022 poisoning of her husband, Eric Richens. The case drew intense global attention because a year after her husband's death and prior to her 2023 arrest, Corey wrote a self-published children's grief book titled, Are You With Me?, to help her 3 sons cope with the unexpected loss of their father. Keep in mind, the whole time she knows that she's the one that killed him, but she's trying to help the sons by writing a children's book to cope with everything. Absolutely sick, cold-blooded monster here, man. I can't wait to see the smoke flow on this jang. It says on March 3rd, 2022, Corey mixed a Moscow Mule cocktail for Eric to celebrate a real estate business closing. An autopsy later revealed that Eric died from a massive overdose, carrying 5 times the lethal limit of on his blood. Corey was convicted of a separate attempted murder plot weeks prior on Valentine's Day in 2022. She left Eric a sandwich that made him violently ill and break out in hives. Eric survived but told a close friend he believed his wife was trying to poison him. Digital forensic evidence recovered from her device showed highly incriminating search terms, including what is the lethal dose of fentanyl? What does it go down on the death certificate as? Also, can cops uncover deleted messages on iPhones? This girl is a massive idiot. Because this is common sense. Of course cops and stuff can uncover deleted messages. Man, come on, it's 2026. Now the motive, according to financial expert testimony, Corey's real estate business was failing, and her net worth had plummeted to negative $1.6 million by the time of Eric's death. Corey opened multiple life insurance policies on Eric without his knowledge, forging his signature to establish coverage totaling roughly $2.2 million. But this is the catch. She mistakenly believed that she would inherit his entire multi-million-dollar estate, but unbeknownst to Corey, years prior he quietly altered his estate planning, moving his assets into a trust controlled by his sister, and completely cutting Corey out of his will. Wow, just imagine how much he really didn't trust this girl, to remove her from his will without her even knowing. And to top it off, state prosecutors proved that Corey was engaging in an ongoing affair with another man as well. In closing statements, the prosecution summarized that Corey wanted to leave Eric Richens, but she did not want to leave his money. Very typical thing these days. Ladies or men just staying for the accommodations. They're not really in love, they just want peace of mind and security. Use that person until they damn die. Crazy world we live in, man. You gotta be very careful. I said it, in a video years ago. One of the most important decisions you will ever make your whole life is who you choose as your significant other to spend your life with. Because that person, depending on who it is, can make your life amazing times 10. Or they could bring you down every single day until they kill you theirself. Be very careful choosing the person you give your heart to. Can't stress that enough. But let's go ahead and jump into the courtroom and witness what they have in store for this cold-blooded backstabbing wife.
In addition, the court has considered each of the factors set forth in Utah Code 76-3-201 subsection 2B and has prioritized those factors as required by section 201 2C. Having considered the gravity and circumstances of the offenses for which Ms. Richens has been convicted, the number of victims, and available information regarding the history, character, and rehabilitative needs of the defendant, the court hereby orders that the sentences on counts 2 through 5 shall run consecutively to each other and to the sentence imposed on count 1.
Consecutive sentence. I think the majority of y'all that's been watching this channel knows that that's not good. But to give you the legal definition rather than my own, it says a consecutive sentence or cumulative sentence is a legal term where a person convicted of multiple charges serves their prison terms one after another rather than simultaneously. And if they did combine them together where she did them simultaneously, it would be called concurrent instead of consecutive. The consecutive structure increases the total time spent in prison, as the second sentence only begins once the first one is completed. So Bobby's not wrong, giving her a little taste of smoke already.
Moreover, the court exercises its discretion and chooses to impose no fines related to any sentence in this case. The court addresses the 5 counts on which Ms. Richens was convicted in reverse order.
Oh, so if I were to guess, the murder charge will be the last thing she gets sentenced to.
Ms. Richens, based on your conviction on count 5, third-degree felony forgery, the court hereby sentences you to an indeterminate prison term not to exceed 5 years.
Little 5
Based
clip.
on your conviction on count 4, second-degree felony insurance fraud, the court hereby sentences you to an indeterminate prison term of not less than 1 and not more than 15 years.
That's a big
Based on your
window.
conviction on count 3, second-degree felony insurance fraud, the court hereby sentences you to an indeterminate prison term of not less than 1 and not more than 15 years. Based on your conviction on count 2, first-degree felony attempted aggravated murder, the court hereby sentences you to an indeterminate prison term of not less than 5 years, and that may be for life. Which brings us to the final issue. The appropriate sentence for count.
Now, I hate to stop it, but all those crimes that she's been sentenced to, even on a consecutive level, if she were to get the low end of each one of them, I believe it would only be 12 years, even though the window's large. Some of them goes to life. A lot of times, if you're a role model inmate, you ain't never going to see that amount of time. But yeah, at the very least, she could be getting out at 12 years at this point.
Utah Code 76-3-207.7, there are only 2 options. An indeterminate prison term of not less than 25 years, and that may be for life, or life in prison without parole. And the law requires that the court consider each option.
The judge said there's only 2 choices, 25 to life or life without parole. If she gets life without parole, it's going to umbrella all those other charges she got. It really doesn't matter what she has to do for those because she ain't never getting out. But if the judge chooses 25 to life, that means at the bare minimum, she would have to do 25 years before going up for parole. Keep in mind, it's consecutive, so I believe she would have to do either the 25 first or that 5 first or that 1 first before she can even get parole for this if she gets parole. So even if she did get the low end on this one at 25 to life, man, she still ain't getting out of prison for decades.
Under a sentence of 25 to life, and considering the effect of the 4 consecutive sentences, the time that Ms. Richens has spent in custody, and the current practices of the Board of Pardons and Parole, Ms. Richens would likely serve approximately 30 years in the Utah State Prison
30.
before receiving her first parole hearing.
Yep.
By that time, she would be 66 years old. Under a sentence of life in prison without parole, Ms. Richens would be in prison for the rest of her natural life, unless the Board of Pardons and Parole determines by clear and convincing evidence at some future point that she is permanently incapable of being a threat to the safety of society, at which time the Board would have the authority to release her. Under either scenario, Ms. Richens will be incapacitated, meaning structurally prevented from harming anyone outside the Utah State prison system for at least the next 3 decades, and perhaps much longer. But the potential impact on the survivors of the tragedy created by Corey Richens, most importantly, Eric Richens' 3 sons, is more difficult to predict. On one hand, if the court sentences Ms. Richens to life without parole, 1 or more of those young men may come to resent that the court eliminated any opportunity they might have in the future, decades into the future, to express an opinion as adults with substantial life experience about whether their mother should, for example, be allowed to die with dignity. On the other hand, if the court sentences Ms. Richens to 25 to life, One or more of those young men may spend the next 30 years questioning why the court failed to protect them from the prospect of the person who murdered their father being released from prison at some time in the distant future, perhaps when they have families and children of their own.
I like what the judge is doing here. He's breaking down exactly what would happen in the future, hypothetically, depending on which choice he makes. And if I were to guess, that's how, he weighs out his decisions. I don't know, I'm just guessing. If I was a judge, I'd probably do it like that. But I like how he's painting the pictures and breaking it down.
The court's contemplation of how those young men may come to feel about today's decision some 30 years from now comes from a place of genuine concern for them and humility regarding the court's inability to predict the future. Sitting here today, it is simply not possible for anyone, not even those young men, to know how their view of this case may evolve over the next several decades. My hope is that every person affected by Eric Richens' death will, over time, find their way to a state of peace. As for today, the court's duty is to make a decision, a weighty, long-lasting decision based on the best information available today. And the bottom line is this. Corey Richens was convicted unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt of attempting to murder Eric Richens, her husband, and the father of their 3 children. And then, having failed in her first effort of spending the next 17 days not changing course, but doubling down, preparing to try again, and ultimately completing the act through the administration of poison.
Cold-blooded snake.
Money. All for pecuniary gain.
She raised her eyebrows when he said, "For what? Money." As though that wasn't the only reason why she did it. Wow, if I could pump a smoke machine in herself for the rest of her bid, I would.
Person if convicted of committing that sequence of acts in that way and for that reason, and who causes the absolute tragedy that has befallen Eric Richens' sons and family. A person convicted of those things is simply too dangerous to ever be free.
Yup.
Accordingly, Ms. Richens, based on your conviction on count 1, first-degree felony aggravated murder, the court hereby sentences you to life without parole. You have the right to an appeal.
Smokeville forever.
You must file a notice of appeal within 30 days. You have the right to be represented by counsel on appeal. Mr. Bloodworth, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Lewis, Ms. Nestor.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, if you ever want to write her a letter, her permanent address is Smokeville. Won't be changing for about a lifetime, I can assure you that. But this one definitely brought a little bit of joy and sun rays to my heart. Watching a cold-blooded backstabbing wife get smoked to life. Love it! And I did not mean for that to rhyme so well. But cases like this just absolutely blow my mind. That guy was sleeping next door, probably kissing her, buying her gifts, cooking her meals, and all this stuff the whole time she was planning on trying to kill him. Just absolutely crazy. You know what this case kind of reminds me of? Dude Aaron from Ghost Adventures, his wife, while he was working on set, making a show and stuff, she was plotting with the inmate that I believe, if I remember correctly, was already serving life in prison. A Florida prison, right? And his wife contacted him trying to get her husband killed. And if you're to ask me, she got a straight slap on the wrist that made me sick to my stomach. If I was planning some shit like that, man, I'd been in prison till there's 4 doors on a microwave.